Two of the NBA's best young stars each put on a show last night in Minnesota. Last year's #1 overall pick, Karl-Anthony run this town, scored 47 points and posted 18 rebounds, while the #4 overall pick from 2015, Kristaps Porzingis, had 29 points and 8 rebounds. Hotline Zing squad got the best of Towns as the Knicks pulled out the 106-104 victory. Max, who would you rather have moving forward, Towns or Porzingis?
The answer is Kristaps Porzingis.
Really?
Now, Karl-Anthony Towns is a better player right now, all that stuff. I'll leave that to you, Stephen A., if you want to argue that. Here's the bottom line about Kristaps Porzingis. He is the kind of player that in a couple of years, the Eastern Conference, going into every single offseason, every single GM in the Eastern Conference is going to be faced with the same question. How do we deal with Porzingis? He is 7'3" and can shoot the three this year. It's only his second season at a 40% clip. He can play defense. He can control the paint. He can step out on guys. I mean, he can close out on shooters. He can put the ball on the floor against any big man, any center, facing up. He can do all kinds of things that no one who's ever lived at that height can do. No one who has ever lived at that height can do. And Karl-Anthony Towns, amazing overall talent, the whole thing. And strategically, I get it. He's a souped-up Draymond Green, way souped up, and the Western Conference is going to have to deal with him. But Kristaps Porzingis is going to be a mismatch for everyone he plays for the rest of his career, and I think the only thing stopping him from being the dominant force in the NBA one day is health. If he can stay healthy, it's his world.
Well, listen. First of all, I appreciate you acknowledging he's not better than Karl-Anthony Towns yet, #1. #2, Kristaps Porzingis is somebody, listen, I jumped all over Phil Jackson when he drafted the guy, but it's because I had never seen him, and Phil Jackson was talking about how he's a project for 3 or 4 years. So people thought I was attacking the player, and I wasn't doing any such thing. I was simply going by Phil Jackson's words that it's going to take 3 or 4 years for this guy to develop, and I was like, who the hell said the Knicks got 3 or 4 years? That was what I was attacking. But having said all of that, let's be clear. Karl-Anthony Towns is a stud. He is 7 feet. It ain't like he's some 6-foot guard or something like that. Yeah, Porzingis is 7'3", but Karl-Anthony Towns is 7 feet. He can play with his back to the basket. Porzingis really can't. He can shoot. He can get his shot off, no question about it. I love the fact that Porzingis also blocks shots, but Karl-Anthony Towns can do it all. He was a guy that was considered relatively soft in high school because he was too busy shooting jumpers, and then he went to Kentucky, and Calipari made it clear to him, you better not shoot any damn jumpers when you here. We're going to put your behind down low. And he helped that boy develop a post game, which is why he ended up being the #1 overall pick. Karl-Anthony Towns is somebody I slept on as well. This brother's legit. He's big time. He's a go-to guy. He's a #1 offensive option. And the same arguments that you made in terms of teams in a conference having to watch out for him. How are we going to deal with this guy? This guy being able to guard not just down low, but away from the perimeter. These are all things you can also say about Karl-Anthony Towns. So what I would say to you is that considering that they're both the same age, that they both have youth on their side, that they're both 7 feet and above, I'm going to take the Karl-Anthony Towns that can play with his back to the basket as well as facing the basket. He ain't the shooter that Porzingis is, no doubt about that. But he's pretty good.
Me of Stephen A? You know what it reminds me of?
It's right up in the air, though. It's close.
I agree. You know what it reminds me of in its way is Shaq and Olajuwon. I'm not saying that their games are exactly the same, but obviously in Porzingis and Shaq's case. But Olajuwon was the more complete player, the better player. I thought he was better than Shaq. But somehow, Shaq was the more dominating force. Shaq was the guy that the whole league had to figure out what to do with, who you had to devote more resources to. To me,
yeah, but so what are you saying?
I'm saying that Towns is Olajuwon, and Porzingis, not in terms of style of play, but in terms of potential of the force he can be, is more like Shaq. In this case, his height and his shot make him unguardable and unstoppable potentially.
Hold on, because I got a question for you. I'm really interested in knowing your answer to this. You know I know that Shaq is the most dominant force of my lifetime.
Right.
Okay? That's what I consider Shaquille O'Neal to be.
Sure.
Shaquille O'Neal never won a title with Penny Hardaway. All right? Had Eddie Jones, Van Exel, and all of these boys. Couldn't win a title with them. Won a title with Kobe. Olajuwon, who did he have? None but love for my brother Kenny Smith now. Okay, we appreciate Robert Horry. All right, we got Otis Thorpe. All right, Mario Ellie, still love him to this very day. You know, but none of them were Kobe. So when we say Shaq and then we say Olajuwon, what I'm saying is we can't ignore it. But the flip side to it is that, excuse me, Olajuwon never had a Kobe.
On the
I know
same
Clyde
page.
Drexler jumped on the wagon later on, but I'm just saying the point is he had that Kobe.
Stephen A.,
Shaq
we're on the same page. That's
right.
why at the time, look, my late great brother Sam used to talk about this. When Jordan retired, it's like, okay, here's the parallel universe. Who is the best player in the world in a parallel universe without Michael Jordan? And was it Shaquille O'Neal? No, it was Hakeem Olajuwon. He was the best player in the universe, and Shaq was crewed deep back then. Penny and all those guys in Orlando, and it didn't matter. They got destroyed. So I understand. That's what I'm saying. This is why it's a tough argument, because Karl-Anthony Towns is more like the Olajuwon, not as physically freakish, but a better overall player. But in the end, who do you really want? The physical freak who you just can't stop, I think, here.
I got it, but the difference is that the dominance in terms of Shaquille O'Neal, there was a huge discrepancy in terms of pure dominance, physical dominance between Shaq and Olajuwon. In the case of Karl-Anthony Towns and Porzingis, I don't think that gap exists, and that's what I'm saying.
Maybe 7'3", though, brother. 7'3". Ugh.
Guys,
He's open all day at every point.
Gentlemen, we got to move on.
Seahawks fans weren't happy last year after the game when Cam Newton grabbed his Wells flag, crumpled it up, and threw it away. I know you've always defended his celebrations during games, but did he cross the line when he did that after the game last year?
Yeah, he probably did, and I guess karma gets you. Doesn't look like you're going to be in the playoffs this year.
Sherman and the Seahawks host the Panthers this Sunday in a must-win for Carolina. Mark Schlereth in the house. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys, man. Always great to be with you guys.
Max, I want to start with you.
Yeah.
Does Richard Sherman just need to be quiet?
No, it's the last thing he needs to do. I love me some Richard Sherman. Everyone talks about Stanford, he's smart and all that. Yeah, that's fine. Lots of people are smart. Well, some people are anyway. But he is not afraid to express his opinion. He's not going up to people saying, hey, do you have a microphone? Can I say something? He's up at a dais. They're asking him questions. And would you rather him give a boring, PC, homogenized nonsense answer? Or would you rather him tell you what he thinks? He tells you what he thinks. And by the way, has had great success doing that his entire career. And he's playing a position where sometimes even when he's not burnt, it'll look like he's burnt. And he has to take responsibility for that. And he still talks that smack. I love this guy.
Listen, he comes from an angle of understanding. You talk about intelligence. He is well thought out. But here's the deal. We all want truth from our athletes until they tell the truth. Yeah. And then we're like, oh my gosh, you can't say that. Guy just comes out and tells it like it is. And that's exactly how it is. You'll put that stuff up. This is how it works in the NFL. There's bulletin board material works for a reason. And it works during the course of the week for preparation. Getting your guys ready. The guys who aren't maybe the professionals you need them to be, that stuff gets you amped up. Once the game's kicked off, you're not thinking about that 12th man flag and the crumple up and all that stuff. But there is that karma aspect of it. And if you're going to be that front runner, you're going to be pounding your chest, you're going to be doing the Superman stuff. When things don't go well, boy, I tell you what, NFL players, coaches, they want to pile on Cam Newton. That's the way it is. And so good for Richard Sherman, man. Good for him. I find him, the only thing I didn't like that really bothered me is after that playoff game against San Francisco when he went after Michael Crabtree, who worked his butt off to come back that year from an Achilles tendon injury, and I thought that was completely disrespectful and out of the realm.
Do you think he was being honest, though? Do you think he really did believe Crabtree? Because I agree with you. I felt like it was a low blow because he had just proven that he's better than Crabtree. You don't have to rub it in his face. But do you think it was an honest opinion? I thought that's what Sherman thought at the time.
It probably was what he thought at the time. That was the only thing that ever really bothered me with Sherman. But I tell you what, I find him for the most part intelligent, refreshing, and he has a well thought out plan when he gets up to speak. And for that, I applaud him.
Stephen A?
Well, first of all, Richard Sherman is a brilliant brother, and he's somebody to be admired, not just respected, but admired. But just because you are that way doesn't mean you should always say something. To answer the question directly, does he need to be quiet? Absolutely not. But does he need to watch what he says sometimes? Yes, he does. It doesn't mean that he's not doing it. I would just caution that just because you have the platform and just because you have knowledge about every situation doesn't mean you need to speak on everything. I mean, listen, we do this show every day. It's a debate show. Look at all the stuff that we talk about, y'all. Are you trying to tell me we touch on everything we could? There are some things we don't touch for a variety of reasons. And you have to take those things into consideration. Richard Sherman plays in the National Football League. Him going at camp, got no issues with that. Him going at the Carolina Panthers, bringing up karma, I have no issues with that. When you dabbing and celebrating the way that they were last year during games against opponents, it was deemed as disrespectful, and Cam Newton went on the record and said, y'all don't like it, stop it, and shut me up. Well, it seems like a lot of teams have caught on, and that's exactly what they're doing to the Carolina Panthers this year. But as it pertains to the NFL, there are times when Richard Sherman has said things about the league office and things of that nature, and there's a residual impact. Not only that, the way you project yourself, sometimes you're going to take unnecessary hits. Remember that hit against Buffalo on Monday night when he damaged the kicker? If you had a better reputation at times, you would not have had a bevy of people questioning your character and whether or not that was a dirty play and that's something that you would do. Remember when the kicker's wife responded in such a disrespectful manner towards him? Of course, she was wrong to do so, and she had no business doing that. But people like myself and others had to come to the defense of Richard Sherman. He wasn't in a position to do so because the image that he had put out there from time to time, it would have looked bad had he come back at her in a particular kind of way. So these are the kind of things that you have to be sensitive to. And I'll close by saying this. And I've said this to many people that I admire and respect on many occasions, as they have said to me. If everybody were you, you wouldn't be special. You're special for a reason. You have to recognize that, and you have to make sure that you guard against it. So I don't want him to be quiet. I want him to continue to be himself, but at the same time recognize that that brother that's from Compton, that's graduated from Stanford, that is highly, highly intelligent, when he questions the intellect of other people, like officials don't even know the rules and this and that and whatever, man, everybody ain't Richard Sherman. I've been told by numerous players on the Seahawks, they are there with their notebooks, Schlereth, Max, Molly, taking notes. Richard Sherman sits back, doesn't write down anything. And he goes on the field and remembers every damn thing himself and everybody is supposed to do.
Yeah.
He's got it.
That's why
he is
that's why
special.
That's why I disagree with the idea that he should ever bite his tongue. Although I do agree that doesn't mean that you will be perfect every time you talk. And sometimes it felt wrong what he said about Crabtree too, because it's humiliating a defeated opponent, right? And it just didn't. But I do think he was being honest. And there will be times, if you comment all the time, where you will wish that you hadn't said something. But I don't think that's a good enough reason to start biting your tongue if he is a guy with something on the ball who's unafraid to state his opinion.
I remember
that's
you
good.
said
he
that.
makes the world more interesting, and I like
No question.
Yeah,
Listen.
no. Listen, I have no issue with him, and I think all the things you guys said about his ability to articulate, his position, his intelligence, all true, and I love his honesty.
And it's consistent. The honesty is consistent. Listen, you're all special in my eyes, including Richard Sherman.